All right, all right. Oh, ignore the cat. Good evening, Twitch. Welcome to the stream for anyone who's already here. As usual, gonna really quickly jump into some quick updates. There aren't really a lot of updates today. I woke up not super feeling it. Didn't really get a lot of viewers yesterday while I was on stream, and so I decided to go ahead and start quite a bit later during the day today to hopefully get some more interaction. Now I just don't even have the right one open. So today, because I didn't have too many people yesterday. I decided to start streaming a little bit later during the day to get a bit more interaction. I'm going to be working on this bust of a cartoon style pinup. This piece is a commercial use project that was commissioned by Nicolette Nightmare. It's one of two. The second one needs some further review from the client, review and input, before I can move forward on it. So the sketch for this one has been approved, and all I've got to do is start powering through it, essentially. In the last day, there were a few updates that I should talk about. I basically woke up and started working on the back end stuff all day today. First off, I did a stream over on Discord a few days ago that lasted me a couple days, working on a artwork called Huldra for a client. It's a super detailed male pinup, essentially, in a fine art style. And today I actually recorded it as I was working, so I compiled the first time-lapse video in something like 7 or 8 months, and that went live on my YouTube today. So you can feel free to jump over to the Ash Something Artificial YouTube to check that out if you would like to. My streams have been going live from Twitch onto YouTube as well if you want to look at past streams. I am fairly quiet while I'm streaming. That's mostly because it's a little bit difficult for me with ADHD to draw and talk at the same time. However, anyone who comes in to chat with me, feel free to send messages and I'll see them and respond at some point during the stream. Yeah, I think that's most of it. Let's see. The YouTube video, I uploaded a bunch of new artwork from the last couple weeks to update my portfolio, and that's about it. So yeah, not a ton of updates to deal with. Why is that still? There we go. That's better. Cool. So yeah, let's go ahead and get onto it. Man, already my hand doesn't want to do what it's supposed to. Okay. Maybe I could put on stabilization a little bit. Maybe I need better stabilization than that. There we go. You would think that after decades of using various digital art programs, I would have a sense for how my hand works best with these damn tablets. But no. What I mean by that, if anyone is curious, is that I have an easier time doing straight lines or controlling the curve of a line if I'm dragging my hand as opposed to pushing the pencil. So if I start here going down this way, I'm dragging my hand like that. And I can do almost straight lines. But if I'm going this way and dragging, it gets a lot more wiggly, and I'm not able to really control that. It's kind of good if I'm doing fast motions those directions. But even then, fast motions going the other way, I can go much faster. And the lines have a lot more control on them. So I turn the canvas so that I can do a drag on the lines there, which gives me a bit more control. Whereas if I were to like just turn this straight up, obviously there's a drag that I can get here, but then the easiest way for me to get that curve there would be to go with a push, unless I turned the canvas this direction, at which point I could then get that nice drag going. Makes it a little hard to tell if I'm doing the proportions right sometimes, but the proportions can fairly easily be corrected. And a lot of this really only comes into play specifically. A lot of it doesn't come into play when I'm doing shading or coloring, because the line art's really where I need that precise control. No, it doesn't really change from program to program, Jen. Because I'm still using the same tablet, and the tablet functions the same program to program. See, that was a push, and I hated that line. And once in a while, when I'm dragging my brush, it just doesn't work how I want it to. All right, let's see. I actually got in not a lot of trouble, but I got bitched at a lot by art teachers growing up about that. Like, apparently it's bad form to change the orientation of your canvas or your paper while you're drawing. And so art teachers would get a wild hair up their ass telling me to stop flipping my paper upside down or stop changing the angle, that I need to learn how to draw with the paper straight up just as I see it. And I never understood it, and they were never able to make me. But like, when you can do super crisp lines, and especially in digital art, super crisp lines in one specific angle, and that one angle gives you way more control over the art you're doing, why the fuck would you change it? Like, that just does not make sense to me. I think from a presentation standpoint, it can get a little frustrating. Meaning, like, on here, not so much, right? Here on Twitch, streaming, real time, you get to see the whole process and, like, the care that I take with each line, and it might be a little boring to watch if you're not interacting and talking at the same time. But once it gets to, like, the time lapse, for example, my Holdra piece that I just put up, I increased that one to 64 times speed. And at that point, it's just constantly turning and rotating the canvas. Draw one line, rotate, draw one line, rotate at rapid fire speeds. And I think from a viewer's standpoint, that's probably really fucking irritating. Like, I rewatch my time lapses 4 or 5 times each, and even I get frustrated at them sometimes. So I think what a lot of people don't understand about Bob Ross is that Bob Ross is an impressionist, or rather, I guess, expressionist would be a better term, but he mixes impressionist and expressionist technique, right? Which is to say, he doesn't draw things, or paint things rather, how they look. He paints them how we imagine they look. And there's something to be said about the difference there. Like, you may not immediately grasp the difference if you're not an artist, but he doesn't use references, and he has a lot of paintings where he paints literally exactly the same thing from his memory. And that's just how he do. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not necessarily a bad style or what have you. But it's limited. It limits you to being able to only draw the things that, or only paint the things that you can paint from memory using his techniques. And so that's not to say that what he does isn't super impressive, because it is. But it's also really limited. I can expound on that also. Like, I'm not knocking Bob Ross. Yeah, well, yes and no. Like, what's the best way to say this? Bob Ross is really great at teaching you brush technique. Bob Ross is not really good at teaching you how to do art. He doesn't teach you composition. It looks like he doesn't even think about composition. He uses pretty much the same composition in every one of his paintings. And there's a name for the composition style he uses. I can't remember what it's called. can't remember the name of the composition style. Whatever. So the type of composition he uses is, it's always set up with mountains or trees in a triangle in the background, with an intersecting upside down triangle in the front, and the focal point is usually like a hut or something like that in the mid-ground. And it's never centered, it's always off to one side, either the right or the left, and there's a very particular name for that specific composition, and every one of his paintings use it. And he's a master of that composition, but it doesn't teach people who are trying to study art how to do other types of compositions. And because he only uses, or rather because he only does landscapes, you're also missing all the fundamentals of how to draw creatures, how to draw people. His techniques, most of them don't translate to portrait painting and like drawing hair or painting hair and stuff like that. And so when I say it's really limited, that's what I mean. Like, if you are trying to learn specifically how to do Bob Ross style landscape paintings, then yeah, it teaches you that. But that's all it teaches. Except brush technique. Brush technique's actually really important, and not enough artists really learn it. So that's a useful one, or a useful part of them. And mind you, again, I'm not trying to knock Bob Ross. I watched his show religiously growing up. When they hit Netflix, I watched all of them in a marathon while I was doing art and painting. And there are a lot of takeaways from it. Like, there are a lot of really useful little tidbits and stuff. But as he says himself, he's trying to get you to draw or paint how you feel. You know? It holds no basis in reality. It holds basis for what you like and what your preferences are, which is cool. But again, only if your preferences are landscapes. I will say that he had one technique that just blew my fucking mind. I didn't even think about it until I saw him do it at one point. And it's when he's painting rocks. Because when he paints rocks, he will take the brush, dip two sides of the brush, or dip each side of the brush in a different paint color, one light and one dark, and then he'll just go and slap that against the canvas, and bam, you have a rock. And it's so simple, and it's so stupid, and it works so well. And as long as you never flip the brush, you're going to have light coming in at the same angle every single brush stroke that you try to create like that. And that's a really useful thing. Like, there are a lot of little tiny tidbits like that are like, goddamn. But yeah, it doesn't teach you what I believe are a lot of fundamentals in art. Like, I don't think I would ever use Bob Ross, his whole series or whatever, as a teaching implement for people if I were trying to teach them how to paint. I think I would sample it here and there. I also think that art teachers who use Bob Ross as like their primary source of teaching are hacks. And there are, like, I've had art teachers who relied on that. Confidence is a good point, though, because it's really easy for beginner artists to really fucking hate everything they do. And Bob Ross makes so many things so simple that even somebody who's never picked up a paintbrush before watching him should have a reasonably easy time picking up a paintbrush if they're following along with him and making something pretty great. And that's a really big bonus in general to his style. But again, it's just, it doesn't translate into any other style, really. So if you want to, for example, paint oil paintings like Frank Frazetta, or do airbrushing like H.R. Giger, or you want to do the line art comic book or realistic comic book style of somebody like Louis Royo, you would never be able to translate anything you learn from Bob Ross into those styles because he just doesn't teach them, or doesn't teach it. He also doesn't teach planning. And planning's a really important step if you want to be a professional artist. And what I mean by planning is basically everything from the sketch forward. I think the biggest issue with Bob Ross, though, is that he doesn't actually explain things. And for me, and for some other artists that I know, that's not actually a problem. If I see what type of brush he's using, and how he's holding his hand and or flicking his wrist or what have you, I'm going to pick that up and I'm going to learn it, but that's because I'm highly visual. But not all artists are highly visual. Like, sometimes they actually need a description. Not just, like, why or what, but, like, he's a really big fan of using the... Actually, yeah. He's a really big fan of using the fan brushes for things like, trees, right? You use the fan brush, you go in the side-to-side motion, and bam, you have leaves. But he doesn't explain why it is he's using that brush, or he doesn't go into, like, why, or rather how he holds the brush to get the technique that he's using to look the way that he does, like, he gets it to. You know what I mean? Like, there are a lot of limiting factors with how he presents his stuff in those regards. But at the same time, they're not actually problems with his art or his style or with how he teaches. You know what I mean? Like, it's all good information. It's just, if you're learning how to paint, you're gonna want to pull up a bunch of different sources and not just rely on him. That's really what it boils down to. Also, he doesn't teach color theory. Like, he tells you which colors he's using, and that's it. He doesn't explain why he uses the colors, how they work well together, or anything like that. And I don't know, that's also something that's really important. And again, this all goes back to, like, the style. He is, at his core, an expressionist, so he's not worrying about those technical details. Which is great if you want to be an expressionist. It's really bad if you want to be any other type of artist. Yeah, exactly. Like, and I'm not wanting to knock expressionists either. Like, I couldn't fucking do it. I'm too much of a micromanager in my art. Like, I've got a art monkey sitting over my shoulder being like, you're doing that wrong, you're doing that wrong, you're doing that wrong. Every step of the way. My mantra is trust the process. See, meanwhile, I have a really strong perception of color as well. It's one of my bigger skill sets, is being able to differentiate between colors. And I fucking hate Impressionism. More than that, though, I hate Abstract Expressionism. Abstract Expressionism is the bane of my fucking universe. I can't stand to look at it. Bob Ross just does chill little landscapes for the most part, which is cool. I feel like if you're going to be an impressionist, you should be able to learn how to blend, and none of them ever think about doing that in their art. They just slap the paint down and hope. And I'm just like, couldn't be me. But, like, what's his name? Degas? Yeah, Degas. Degas has a really strong sense of composition, form, anatomy, texture, and he's an impressionist, and I don't really mind his work. Most of his is just the content I couldn't give a shit about. Yeah, Degas, the ballerinas. And then both Monet and Manet, obviously. Their art isn't bad. It's just not fucking captivating to me. It's uninteresting. I'm not going to stand in a room full of little girls learning ballet. I don't want to look at paintings of it. I don't know. Although, actually, that said, there is a high chance that I won't say what I was just about to. as far as grown men sitting in a room full of little girls in spandex learning ballet go, he's probably the exact type of person that you would have expected to be there. Very unfortunate, but a lot of artists, they're interested in what they paint. It was really unfortunate when I realized that about what's his name? Oh no, I erased his name from my memory banks because I found out. Shit. Renaissance era painter, was famous for painting himself as Dionysus, or Bacchus, I guess he referred to it. Caravaggio. He had a 14-year-old apprentice that he used as a model in some of his works, specifically doing nudes of, and it came out later when that apprentice became an artist himself that Caravaggio was using him for a lot more than just painting. This is why we choose safe options as favorite painters, like Artemisia Gentileschi. The ear thing was highly exaggerated, most likely. I've done in-depth studies about Van Gogh and really done the research and stuff, and from what it sounds like, he had a episode, and he suffered from delusions, most likely schizophrenic delusions, and he wanted to show, I don't know, he fell in love with a prostitute, and he wanted to show her his dedication to her, and he cut off a piece of his ear. Not the full ear, or whatever. And, if I'm honest, I've done worse. I've done worse in my right mind. People get too judgmental about shit. The other thing a lot of people will mess up about Van Gogh is that he didn't do all those paintings when he was depressed. Just flat out wasn't true. A lot of people like to say that that's when he did it, but he did it specifically when he was in recovery, while he was institutionalized. And for a long time of him being institutionalized, he wasn't painting. Not until he started to feel a little bit better. And I think he was on lithium when he painted Starry Night. I can't remember if that's actually true, though. Now, you wanna get on an artist for being a piece of shit or whatever, doing reprehensible stuff. Like, a lot of people pose the ear thing as Van Gogh at his worst and being a terrible person and super creepy and everything like that. You know who should be bitched at, though? Pablo fucking Picasso, who spent 50 years brutally beating his wife. Or Diego Rivera, who did the fucking same. And not only that, but repeatedly cheated on his wives with younger girls and the models that he was using. Yeah, Pablo Picasso's a piece of shit, irredeemable. Jackson Pollock also. I'm sorry, I do not believe that artists who spend all their time doing drugs, getting drunk, and beating the women in their lives deserve to be famous. I don't give a fuck how much people like their art. You should not be separating the art from the artist like that. Also, Diego Rivera, just slimy dude. Like, I know he's like the official artist of Mexico and he's got huge cultural relevance and everything like that, but he fucking shouldn't. Right? Yeah. I didn't think you did. It's just a common trope in the art world for people to shit talk Van Gogh about the ear. Van Gogh is not the type of art that I like. That's the only negative criticism I have of him. He was super polite. He respected women for the most part, which is a lot to say considering the art world at the time was super fucking misogynistic. He was probably asexual and just hung out being depressed and doing art. And having what could very well have been schizophrenic delusions. Like, that's not a dude. I mean, it's not a bad thing to think of him as a. Or for him to have become a famous artist or whatever. Like, he just did his fucking thing, you know? There are a lot of other artists out there that have that did much, much worse than he did, that nobody ever brings up. Like, nobody ever talks about the shitty things that Picasso did. Nobody ever talks about the fact that, what's his name? Caravaggio was a... Can't say that word on Twitch. PDF file? But in contrast, people talk about Van Gogh and his fucking ear all goddamn day. Like, they don't shut up about it. Your experience with that information is probably very different from mine, being that I went to art school and such. But in art school, there's just so many people that need to shut the fuck up about Van Gogh. Honestly, not much. Everything about Dali was just a giant circle jerk. Everyone loved him. If I'm honest, I haven't done a lot of research into Dali as a person. I've only really seen a few of his paintings, and I enjoy them. I do like me some surrealist stuff, but he's never really been an artist that caught my attention. Honestly, when it comes to people from that time period, I just assume they're shitty people. It's part of why that entire timeline of art is just a giant gap for me, you know? Mind you, like I'm this critical in general with all of the artists that I talk about and reference and what have you. Like another one, and I do say fairly often that he's one of my favorite artists because he is. But Frank Frazetta, also really problematic, almost as problematic as what's his name, Andy Warhol to me. But unlike Andy Warhol, he actually had skill with fucking paint. As far as I know, I haven't seen a lot of negative things about how he treated other people. Most of the problematic shit that I know about Frank Frazetta is how he dealt with art. And he would get pissed off at artists and try to enact lawsuits, copyright lawsuits, because they used a similar pose to his. and he was under the impression that he owned the poses that he painted. You can't copyright a pose. So, like, he didn't own the poses that he created, and he needs to shut the fuck up. Basically, he was really gatekeepy, and he attempted to be shitty to other artists and take credit for their work and stuff like that. And meanwhile, he's doing this stuff, and 80% of his paintings were paintings of extant source material. Like, he got famous for the paintings that he did of Tarzan. And the reason he got famous is because he did a bunch of paintings of Tarzan, and then somebody bought them for an official release of a Tarzan book. So, like, you're getting famous and making a name for yourself by copying IP, and then you want to get pissed off at people who might have used your art and your IP as a reference. Go fuck yourself. It's like the AI bros these days who are like, oh, you can't copyright art, or we're not stealing it, or whatever, because it's all on the internet. And then the moment they do their little shitty AI artworks, or images rather, they start trying to copyright it, or say stuff like, don't remove my watermark, or credit me when you post it, and this and that, as if they're not blatantly stealing from other artists. So that's most of what I know about Frank Frazetta as a person. That if he were alive today, he would be an AI bro. But he also did a bunch of fucking really cool paintings, and his brush technique is phenomenal. Which is unfortunate, because he is who he is. Meanwhile, Braum has better brush technique and is a lot more creative and does way more art, and a lot of his art is super original. Like, nobody else does concepts like he does. And so Braum blows Frank Frazetta out of the fucking water. But I feel like Frank Frazetta's art style is closer to... It's more within my reach than Braum's is. Braum is an art god, and I would want to be as good as him if the gods could ever see it in their mercy to stop being assholes and let my hand work how I want it to. That's how I look at it. Like, I can sit here and say, yeah, he had great brush technique. Yeah, he had fantastic form and lighting, and he chose really good poses. And I just know he would be rolling over in the grave having me reference his art for my own art, which is just win fucking win. You can't gatekeep people and be a shitty person as an artist and then expect anyone to and a hypocrite, and then expect anyone to respect you any more than you respected other artists. If if copyright protections weren't in place for 70 years after an artist's death, I would be using his art as public domain type inspiration. Because he is such a shitty person. Just need anybody who does the same type of art as him that is a better person than him. All right. The way I use colors hits a certain sweet spot in your brain that makes you the happy juice. Thank you. Drawing on the wrong layers over here, proving that I am, in fact, an idiot, despite everything you might have heard about me. Or said about me, for that matter. Oh my god. Thank you for the subs. It's appreciated. This isn't working how I want it to at all. I don't know how to do it. Gotta make sure they're just barely kissing. I'll figure out how to do this type of a fill when I'm off stream, because when I was using Photoshop, I used this type of fill often. Just a little cheater, cheating a little. That doesn't track at all. Feel like you definitely came back after the pattern.
digital breeze from cybernet seas. We may not make it out of the bay. Just unwind, it doesn't matter anyway. Try not to freeze or throw away the
Oh no, what?
keys. The predator is now the prey. Things could be different. Things could be alright. Things could be innocent when dark becomes light. We're online, ready to fire away. Powered by a dream, connected to a screen. The Revo's in 4K.
All right. So I am ready to call this one done if the client is. She ordered a flat color, so what's up with that? Maybe I'm not ready to call it done. Oh, I see. Hmm. That's weird. Why is it on that layer? Did I delete something? I must have deleted something. There we go.
Like the city, but I am tired of the same people, of the same things. I want to escape now to another place now, but with you 'cause I don't want to be alone. Tell me if you want to follow me now, to follow me. Take me to your arms and never leave me. Don't leave me, boy. Tell me if you want to follow me now, to follow me. Take me to your arms and never leave me. Don't leave me, boy.
Fucking everything up.
I want to escape now to another place now, but with you 'cause I don't want to be alone. Tell me if you want to follow me now, to follow me. Take me to your arms and never leave me. Don't leave me, boy. Tell me if you want to follow me now, to follow me. Take me to your arms and never leave me. Don't leave me, We used to be solid, not falling apart. Things never not okay when you were mine. You used to be honest, not pulling my heartstrings. Every other day you change your mind. Cause when you're high, you call me like I'm lonely. Some kind of little toy for you to wind up when you land in bed and feeling lonely. I'm tired of being deployed like that. Getting busier and busier, so disorientated. First you want me, then you're busy. Girl, it's not that complicated. Got me tied up in a leash and run. You got me running in a circle. I'm just trying to find my way back to you. What happened to us? Round in a circle. Back where I started, I'm
All right.
keep me on a loop.
That is my portfolio version.
Trying to find my way back to you. What happened to us? Round in a circle. Back where I started, I'm stuck here like glue. You keep me on loop.
Oh, and that's another commission down for the day. Well, yeah, whatever. Only took me 3 hours to more or less get it finished.
I used to respect you, thought I was enough. Yeah, feels like half a century ago. Guess you keep coming back after telling me off without even fitting sorry between goodbye and hello again. Thought we could grow again. How about no again, again and again? I'm trying to tell you we can't be friends. Struggling to comprehend that we broke up and ended again and again and again. And I'm getting busier and busier, so disorientated. First you want me, then you're busy. Girl, it's not that complicated. Got me tied up in a leash and run. I'm going round. You got me running in a circle. I'm just trying to find my way back to you. What happened to us? Round in a circle. Back where I started, I'm stuck here like glue. You keep me on a loop. I'm just trying to find my way back to you. What happened to us? Round in a circle. Back where I started, I'm stuck here like glue. You keep me on loop. Yeah, when you're high, you call me like I'm lonely.
I'm saving up all the different versions real quick. I'll be right back.
To wind up when you're lying in bed and feeling lonely. I'm tired of being deployed like all I am to use a pet. You think you own me? I'm nothing but a boy for you to wind up when you wanna pretend to get to know me. You got me running in a circle. I'm just trying to find my way back to you. What happened to us? Round in a circle. Back where I started, I'm stuck here like glue. You keep me on a loop. I'm just trying to find my way back to you. What happened to us? Round in a circle. Back where I started, I'm stuck here like glue. You keep me on loop.
Okay. So yeah, once these versions are saved up, I think I'm going to go ahead and call it a day with the stream, mostly because the other artwork that I have to do is for this same client, and they requested revisions, but they haven't told me what revisions they want. And since I'm submitting this image to her for revisions as well, I literally can't do anything until she gets back to me. All right. And with that, I have all the different versions saved up and waiting for her. Hopefully she'll get back to me fairly soon. I wanted to get both of these done today, and I would have been streaming for like 7 or 8 hours, no issue, powering through them. But she just refuses to answer. That's frustrating. Anyway, yeah, there we go. 3 hours, 1 commission done that I can now take off my list. And I will be back on here streaming again probably tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow. Hopefully she responds by then. And if not, I'm just gonna pull out another commission and start working on the next one, essentially. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and slap up the outro slideshow and stop recording. And then I will see you guys later. Thanks for stopping in.